Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. I'm so honored to be asked to speak at this event tonight, and welcome to Holladay. I live not far from here, and I represent Holladay and part of Millcreek, part of Murray in its House District 34 in the Utah House of Representatives, and I have for very many years. So I'm so happy that this event's being held here. I spent many years of my daughters bringing them to the library. And before I was in the legislature, I taught high school, Olympus High, English for 33 years. That's 6,000 or 7,000 students. A few of whom are here tonight, including two of my, raise your hands. Okay. Two of my daughters, Holly Mullen, former Tribune reporter, and Paul Fotheringham is here, a former student, and he represents Council District 2 here in Holladay. District 3. So when I was asked to do this, and I'm so honored, I said to Bill, well, I'm not Chinese American. I've heard many of these stories, and I've been to the 150th celebration, but I need to do some background. So he sent me some sources, and I want to show you one book in particular because it relates to what I'm going to say. And then I'm going to time my speech because he gave me 15 minutes, but this part doesn't count. Bill said, this is a wonderful book, and I want you to see it. It's called The Ghosts of Gold Mountain, and it's written by Gordon Chang, the epic story of the Chinese who built the Trans-continental Railroad. And Gordon's a professor at Stanford of history and the humanities, where he serves, and he also serves as co-director of the Chinese Railroad Workers in North America project. So this is a wonderful resource. I've been listening to it on Audible and also reading it, so I highly recommend it. So now, as I said, I'm going to time my remarks because I can easily get off topic if I start telling stories. So just hang on a second. And I apologize for my creaky voice. It's partly age and it's partly allergy, so I might have to stop. Even my daughter said, your voice sounds scratchy, Mother. I can't do anything about it. So hang on 1 second. Okay, tonight I plan to talk about, first of all, many of the sacrifices and challenges that the Chinese railroad workers faced. And I want to note that this year marks the 156th anniversary of the completion of the Trans-continental Railroad. And I came over to the library Friday afternoon. You didn't have these wonderful murals up, but I looked at all this art, and it is spectacular. Some of these kids that did this were 15 years old. But this shows many of the difficulties and challenges they had that I'm going to talk about. So be sure you look closely at them and notice their ages, 15 years old. And Bill said the kids, they did this during COVID, and I believe they were from all over the country and probably were selected for this. But one of the things that relates to that book is about Gold Mountain, because Chinese people started arriving in the United States in significant numbers during the California gold rush of 1848 to 1855. And so many of them were already here, and they came with the lure of making a lot of money. They came from several provinces, and kids as young, boys as young as 13 or 14, they thought they could make their fortune, and they didn't have much opportunity in China at the time. So some of them were already here, and I've also read that railroad workers were recruited from the people from the United States went over to China. But many of them, as many as 12,000 Chinese immigrants were hired by the Central Pacific Railroad to construct its portion of the Trans-continental Railroad from Sacramento, California to Promontory Summit, right here in Utah, in 1867. Chinese workers made up to 80 to 90% of the Central Pacific workforce. Now, the Central Pacific Railroad was from California to Promontory Point, or it's also called Summit. And Union Pacific was from the East Coast to Iowa. And so, you know what it's like in the middle of the country, it's flat. The people we're talking about tonight came over the Sierra Nevadas, cut through the mountains. It is absolutely incredible what they did. And so by the time of the completion in 1869, there were more than 20,000 Chinese Americans who contributed to this monumental project. Now, these laborers played a vital role in the railroad's completion, hello? Hello? Okay, there we go. I have to put it right up here. Particularly tackling the treacherous terrain of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Now, if any of you hiked in the Sierras as I have, or crossed Donner Pass, through that pass, which I did hundreds and hundreds of times as a child. My family went to California a lot. Sometimes in the winter, it was cars off the road, chains on them. I mean, terrible storms, whiteouts. But this was in modern times. But this was way back then when there weren't roads. It is, and many of these pictures, these art depicts that. They drilled tunnels through granite. They performed work like carrying rails, setting ties, and hammering spikes, and they were adept at masonry, carpentry, and track laying. I mean, they weren't just unskilled workers, they were very skilled. They faced extreme weather conditions, including freezing winters and blistering summers. The work was incredibly dangerous, with numerous fatalities like explosions and avalanches, and some of these photos, or this art depicts that as well. Estimates of deaths range widely, but some sources suggest as many as 1,000 to 2,000 Chinese workers may have perished during construction. They pounded on solid rock from sunrise to sunset, hung off steep mountain cliffs in woven reed baskets, and withstood the harshest winters on record in the Sierra Nevada. Now, they thought they were going to make pretty good salaries. They'd been told that the salaries were good, but do you know what? They were paid less than half of what their white counterparts did for the same work. They were also segregated in work camps, and they were responsible for providing their own food and lodging, while other workers received these as part of their compensation. After the railroad's completion, many Chinese workers remained in the U.S. and helped establish Chinatowns in many cities and contributed to the cultural landscape of the West, despite facing ongoing challenges, including discrimination and legal barriers to citizenship. But today, we see the Chinese railroad workers' stories as a testament to their resilience, their hard work and determination in the face of immense challenges and discrimination, and their efforts were integral to connecting the United States by rail. It changed the economy of this country. To be able to transport goods across the country by rail, and it allowed people of almost all economic statuses to travel the country on passenger trains, reducing the time it took to cross the continent from months to days. The railroad helped pave the way for Western migration and is considered today as one of the greatest engineering feats in American history. Isn't that something? It's even been compared to the flight to the moon, considering the time. It's truly remarkable. And do you know who authorized this Trans-continental Railroad? President Abraham Lincoln. In 1862, he signed the Pacific Railroad. This should be a bigger podium. The Railway Act into law. He provided the Union Pacific and Central Pacific Railroad companies with land grants and government bonds as incentives. It was primarily funded through a combination of these government subsidies and private investment in the form of land grants and low-interest loans to both of the railroad companies. One of the major investors was Leland Stanford, the president of the Central Pacific Railroad and founder of Stanford University. Did you know that? That's where they got the money to build Stanford and found it, and I read that they still get money as a result of this. And because of his huge personal investment, He was the person who drove the ceremonial golden spike at Promontory Summit on May 10th, 1869, and he missed the mark. And the ceremonial spike, which is gold and silver, I've seen photos of it, it's at Stanford University in their art museum. And do you know, a few years ago at auction, it sold for $2.2 million. And then whoever bought it donated to Stanford for their art museum, but $2.2 million. Isn't that amazing? So now I want to talk about the part about how they were not honored, the Chinese railroad workers, and they were not treated well. And it took quite a while for them to get, over the last 10 years, there's been a good deal done to recognize them. So on May 10th, 2019, the 150th anniversary celebration was held at Promontory Point to commemorate the completion of the railroad. Many state and federal dignitaries were there for the reenactment, including Governor Gary Herbert, then Senator Mitt Romney, who lives right over here, 2 blocks, Secretary of Transportation Elaine Chao. You may know that her husband is Senator Mitch McConnell, who's still in the Senate. The Union Pacific Railroad chairman, plus descendants of Chinese laborers, all participated in the ceremonial spike driving, and they were all dressed in period costumes. Thousands of people attended, including most of the state legislators, including my late husband Bob Moss and I, who were transported by buses that day from the Bear River Bird Refuge Center. And the keynote speaker was author and historian John Meacham, one of my heroes. I think he's one of the best writers of American history, and I have a photo with him, and I was so thrilled. So writers are my heroes. I don't care so much about celebrities, but writers are my heroes. That day, bands played the national anthem, bells, cannons, and a flyover from Hillfield marked the ceremony's culmination. But one of the stars of the show, or the event that day, was Big Boy number 4014, the big steam engine, replica of the steam engine from that day in 1869. It came from a Union Pacific restoration shop at Cheyenne, Wyoming, one of 25 of the Union Pacific's big boys, Union Pacific's largest and best-known steam locomotives. 5,000 people gathered in Laramie, Wyoming to cheer every blast of its whistle. Laramie was the first stop on the 5-day journey to Ogden, and thousands more came to trackside all along the route. And I remember being in the newspaper and on the news stories. It was just such an event. It's so huge, and it was just gleaming and gold and silver, and it was red, and it had the steam and the whistles and the bells, and it was really something. So this event appropriately acknowledged and honored the contributions of the diverse workforce who built the railroad, including Chinese immigrants, as we know, Irish immigrants, freed slaves, Native Americans, and Civil War veterans. Now, one thing that I hadn't known is that when they were coming, after they got over the Sierra Nevadas and through western states, a lot of buffalo were killed. And in fact, this is the place, not this is the place, the monument up, the Golden Spike. It's a national park. They have a sculpture of buffalo, but it was really hurt a lot of Native Americans because it damaged their land and it took some of their land away. So that was one of the unfortunate things. The celebration included a Chinese lion dance, a children's chorus and band, and other performances that highlighted the diverse cultural contributions to the railroad's construction. And it included a reenactment of the historic event where the last spike was driven into the track, completing the Trans-continental Railroad, and this time they got it in the right spot. But this, now a state park, is near Corinne, if you know where that is. somewhere in Box Elder County. Look at this man who I think knows. It serves as a reminder of all the sacrifices made by so many individuals, including the Chinese laborers. And I just want to encourage you to visit Golden Spike National Historical Park in Box Elder County. And I looked online and I saw a lot of photos. A great place to take your kids. They have National Park employees who do commentary, and they have chairs set up, and they have a railroad track, and they have a replica of a steam engine, and shows kids just jumping up and down, and the whistles going, and lots of, as I say, buffalo and different monuments. And so it's worth a trip. I'm going to do that. My daughter says, yes, we're going to do that. And I look forward to that. And now I want to tell you about one other thing to look forward to. And that is that the Golden Spike Foundation, headed by Chairman Doug Foxley, who's a good friend of mine, and many, many people know him from Capitol Hill and his years up on Capitol Hill. And he grew up in that area, Box Elder, and so he has special pride in this. But he helped raise millions of dollars, and they commissioned an artist to create a sculpture that is 44 feet high, long, but high, and 7,000 pounds. And one couple, I can't remember their name, donated $1.5 million for this, but many other people did, philanthropists and others here in Utah. And this park, and I took some photos that I'll try to show you a little bit, because it went on a national tour. And it came to Utah Capitol, started in the Midwest, and it went to cities that were big railroad cities. And Salt Lake isn't a huge railroad city. Ogden is. That's my hometown. Ogden's a big railroad city. And if you can see these, I'm just going to, if you want to look afterwards, I'm just going to hold up a couple and see if you can see them. So there it is in front of the Capitol on a flatbed truck. You can see how huge it is. And this is a picture of it. I was up on the Capitol steps. It's just enormous. And the artist has carved all these scenes in it and included faces of all the different workers, and you can tell their race and their faces, and it's just magnificent. And this is the artist's sculpture, and I can't remember his name. It's a hard name to pronounce, but I mean, he won in a contest. He won over many, many artists. So this will be, oh look, they let us touch it, but we had to wear gloves. We had to wear gloves. So I'll have these after. And then this final one I want to show you, because this is what it's going to look like. And what I read is it's supposed to be put in place this year. And it will be, this is what it will look like. It will be a state park, and you'll be able to see it from the freeway. It'll be closer to Brigham City. And there'll be, of course, signs and other things, but isn't that spectacular? So that's a must-see for everybody. So with that, I once again, thank you for asking me to speak, and I hope I've offered some information that will be helpful to you in remembering those people, selfless people, and I cannot tell you how honored I am to have been able to do this. Thank you.